Hey everyone, it's the wide world of woo. We are talking today about Ghostface Killah, aka Tony Starks, aka Iron Man. We're joined by our friend Andy. My name's Tyler. What's up, Andy?
Not much. Chilling
Cold
here in
chilling.
Minnesota. Cold chilling. It's freezing.
Oh, spring's just around the corner.
Yes.
We're talking Iron Man today. This is, I think, what most people would agree, a pretty important album. But let's get to facts first. It was released October 29th, 1996 on Epic Records and on RZA's subsidiary Razor Sharp. It was certified platinum on February 9th, 2004, which means that it reached platinum status 10 years before Liquid Swords and more than 15 years before Only Built for Cuban Links. Now, Andy, how is that possible?
Honestly, I don't know because I am gonna say something here that I think everybody knows, but it's not, in my opinion, it's not his best album.
Okay.
It is a really good album. But it is, I would say Supreme Clientele is a better album.
hmm I think he
Um,
would agree with you on that.
I think he would too, but
I think he's said that explicitly, actually. So,
yeah, yeah. But those other two albums are like really solid as far as like the first solo albums and all root RZA production albums too. But I don't know. I mean, it is a classic album. Like people do look back on this album and like as far as the world of hip hop and that era of hip hop and like hold it in high regard,
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
So maybe that is just how because it just connected with a whole set of people, you know.
yeah. Yeah, you might be right about that. I'm a little dumbfounded by it. I really like this album a lot, and I I like it more than I thought I did, if that makes sense. The more I've listened to it, the more it's the quality of it, and of course that's a really vague and vacuous term, but we'll get into that later. But I think maybe that it's just every song is a banger on this, and it might not
That is
have, it might not have like the style and cohesiveness of Only Built for Cuban Links and Liquid Swords, but it is a really, really good album. And it had that, I guess, probably pretty big single with Mary J. Blige. I don't
yeah,
know.
we will get into that later, but I think that
Yeah.
had a huge impact on that album because that I've actually kind of always known that song
hmm
even before I was like a fan, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So yeah, and
Yeah.
that song is like heart wrenching. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
So that probably had a pretty big impact. Because you almost always hear Liquid Swords and Only Built for Cuban Links mentioned as the cream of the crop Wu-Tang solo releases, or at least
for
I have. Of course, everyone has a different opinion, but by and large, they seem to be the most acclaimed. So that's why I was just so flummoxed to find out that it was 10 years before either of those, 15 years before Raekwon's. But nevertheless, that was the case. It Depending on which version of this release you have, it's going to have a different number of tracks. I guess it could have as many as 17 tracks with Marvel, which is the CD bonus track, Winter Wars, which is also on the Don't Be a Menace soundtrack, and for that reason is kind of removed from the current streaming versions, and the Soul Controller, which I found out was removed in 2001 from all future pressings due to copyright issues. Regardless of which version you have, all of the tracks were produced by the RZA, except for Fish was produced by True Master. There
Okay.
were, I believe, 3 singles. All I Got Is You, All That I Got Is You, which we already mentioned, Daytona 500, which I'm sure we'll talk about, and the Motherless Child. And of those, All That I Got Is You and Motherless Child were made into videos, along with Kame. I never know how to pronounce it. All was also made into a video. Did you have a chance to watch these?
I have seen them before, but I mostly watched the All That I Got Is You video.
Okay. What'd you
Um,
think?
I love that video. I kind of always have. That song is just like I can't always listen to it because it's
Yeah,
so emotional,
right.
but it's such a great song. And the video is awesome because it just kind of shows like a compassionate side, and it shows
Hmm.
like literally shows what he's talking about, you know.
Right, it's very heavily narrative. It's like every line they like show like the roaches coming out of the cereal box and the
Uh-huh.
TV antenna. Like, it's like they're really lining up with the lyrics.
For sure. They did it. I would say that was probably one of the best like productions as far as like videos go at that point, I think, for Wu-Tang.
Yeah.
Um, at least that I can think of. Like, because all their videos before that were kind of, well, Jizza had some good videos, but they I would say that one is like the cleanest, you know,
Oh
and the most,
yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah. And I love the scene with Method Man sitting with him at the piano.
All right. Yeah, there's some good little cameos in that.
For sure.
I wonder if they filmed that. So I know on YouTube right now it's in HD.
Yeah.
Obviously this, was released or filmed in 1996 or 7, which I didn't realize that they had the technology to where it could be in HD now. Do you know anything about high def film or anything?
Not really. I do know like around that era, like videos definitely started to get more complex, and they you definitely saw more of like CGI, like early CGI and stuff like that
Right,
with Hype Williams and
right.
you know a lot of the bigger videos back then. But I honestly have no idea.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say, yeah, I like the scenes, the shots of him like playing piano and like um it for some reason it looks weird to me in HD. Like it's like too much in focus or something. It
Yeah,
reminds me of like Masterpiece Theater or something, or like Sesame Street. I don't know. It's like I don't know, like PBS material. I don't know if it's the lighting or what it is, but
it is super clean. Yeah,
yeah. So just very, very different from anything that, well, pretty much anything Wu Tang had done, like as a group on 36 Chambers or most of the solo stuff. The Mary J. Blige, who sings the hook and kind of I don't know what you would call the second half of the song is basically all Mary J. Blige, right? Um,
yeah.
and she wasn't available, so Takitha, I think that's how you say her name, Takitha.
Okay.
Could be wrong about that. Let us know, listeners, if we're mispronouncing things. Who was featured in Wu Tang Forever, is who stood in for Mary J. Blige in the video.
Okay.
Um, and I want to say she had some kind of relationship with Ghostface, but I could be wrong about that. Do you know anything about that?
I don't actually, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, he was D Lover, you know, so
Right. Yeah.
I
Okay. Okay. No, I'm
yeah.
wrong about that, but she does have a daughter with the RZA,
Oh, okay.
Prana Supreme Diggs, born 2001.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I recently saw something where Rizza's daughter and must have been her do like country music.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I
I have
haven't
not
listened
seen
to it
RZA.
yet. Okay. I haven't checked it out, but I'll have
Okay.
to.
All right. Yeah. I mean, how could you not? Just to behold see what it's all about. Motherless Child. You didn't have a chance to watch that one?
I didn't watch them recently. I couldn't find them for some reason, but
Okay.
maybe yeah.
Oh, I sent you those in the email.
Oh shoot.
It's
Sorry.
all good. No, you should go watch them. The Motherless Child video is actually directed by Jizza.
Oh yeah, no, okay. So I was reading about this. I didn't
Okay.
realize just a was a video like did some video production until recently actually.
I never knew until I watched this video, and
Okay.
yeah, it's kind of a promotional or tie-in with Sunset Park, which a great soundtrack, by the way. One of the great hip hop soundtracks of the 90s, Sunset Park. But so there are a lot of shots from the movie, but
Okay.
it kind of has a Jizza feel. I'm trying to think which videos, maybe Fourth Chamber and oh gosh, what was the other shadow boxing?
Okay.
Kind of like flashing lights, like different colored flashing lights, a little bit, kind of like a little creepy aspect to it. Um, so that one, I liked it okay. Kame, I thought was pretty unremarkable as a video. I mean, it's fine. I don't think I really need to watch it that much. Um, but definitely check out Motherless Child when you have a chance.
For sure. No, I'll probably do that tonight, honestly.
Let's talk about the cover art. Wow, it is colorful.
Yeah, very colorful. That's
it's
yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
well, I was just gonna say it's like the skit at the beginning of Glaciers of Ice come to life, like talking about dyeing the Clarks multicolor.
Yeah.
Um, and it's cool that with Ray's first solo album, he had Ghostface on the cover appropriately,
Yeah.
and so Ray, or did I say that right? Ghost was on Ray's, and Ray gets on Ghost's cover along with Cappadonna, um,
Hmm.
both of them contributed quite a bit. So it was nice that they're recognized on the cover. Um,
It even says featuring on it.
right, yeah, exactly. Uh, I half went down a rabbit hole reading about their obsession with Clarks, and I'm not going to get into all of it, but there's a good kind of history piece on tommymcdermott.com, I think is how, if I'm saying it right. Shout out to Tommy McDermott. He basically covers the history of Clarks, and then to like connect it with Wu-Tang, I guess Jizza was like out like working as a bicycle messenger and like noticed some, and like I don't know if he bought some for himself, or anyways, apparently he was like the conduit.
Oh,
That Yeah, it's, which is funny because you always associate Clarks, or at least I always do, and Wallabies with Ghostface, of course. Like he's like the
yeah.
Wallaby Don. But I guess Jizza was the one who kind of discovered them for the Wu-Tang. Uh, so yeah, what do you think of the art?
It's definitely like it's interesting. It's not my favorite like album cover art ever, but I love it because it does tie in with the theme so well. Like, I mean, the album's called Iron Man. A lot of the color scheme obviously is based on Iron Man.
Oh man,
you
I
know.
didn't even notice that. I didn't even pick up on that.
Yeah, yeah, and so I think that's really cool. I do love the fact that he like wholeheartedly brought Cappadonna in and was like, "You're going to be on my album cover with me and Ray, and like we're gonna have the Clarks," and like I thought that was really cool. I guess I really like it for the sense, like the sentimental value of it. I think it really fits the album very well as far as looking at it like that.
Hmm. Yeah,
So yeah,
right. Because Cappadonna had kind of just come on board with Cuban Links, if I'm not
yep,
mistaken, right? God he was a mentor of You God, maybe. And so when You God was incarcerated, he brought on Cappadonna kind of fill in and add to Cuban Links, from what I understand.
yeah. From what I've learned is that Cappadonna was actually like kind of like the one in the neighborhood that like everyone looked up to because he was like the dopest lyricist. He
Yeah.
was kind of like the hustler. Like everyone just kind of thought he was the coolest because he always had the newest stuff, you
Yep.
know.
Yep.
So that's,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I mean, his presence is a big deal, I guess, because from what I understand, he was kind of always there and he was always kind of supposed to be a part of it, but kind
Right.
of lost out when he got locked up, basically.
Oh, Cappadonna was locked up.
Yeah, yeah. So when he
Okay.
was released, that's when they had kind of started to get their money, from what I understand, and they basically like they found out he was out, and they basically just gave him a bunch of money, gave him clothes, gave him a place to stay, and then they were like, come and be a part of this, basically. Just
Wow.
we're going to give you a career because you were the one who kind of showed us the way in the first place.
That's cool.
Yeah, yeah.
And it seems like he's never really taken that for granted, or at least, I mean, I don't know him personally. I don't know that much about him, but it seems like he's been really dedicated to cultivating his, what he can contribute to hip hop and Wu-Tang. And, as far as I know, he hasn't had any other like run-ins with the law. He's like when Wu-Tang has been like home from tour, he was like driving a cab to make money. So,
Yeah,
just like, making the most of being an artist, and then not risking it in the downtime. Um, so yeah, I agree. His contributions are really good on this, and it's kind of interesting to think about. He jumped on with Cuban Links. He had a huge role in this, and then many other Wu Tang albums, but didn't really become a member until after ODB's passing, right?
yeah. I think so, from
I
what
think
I
it,
understand.
yeah, I think it was 8 Diagrams, either Iron Flag or 8 Diagrams, when he finally like stopped being a featured member and was like an actual member.
I think you're right because I think that's the first time he was in like the group photos and everything.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, you
Yeah.
definitely might be right about that.
Yeah. Um, cool. So that yeah, I'm blown away that you picked up on that. So I will say, in my defense, I am colorblind, so
Oh shit.
that I didn't know that it like linked up with Iron Man, like the comic colors. That's what
I'm
I'm gonna
also a
give
huge
myself a
nerd.
pass. Here's my one complaint. Well, no, I'll have maybe some little complaints, but I've always felt like the audio clips for this release and Supreme Clientele should be switched. Like, this release is called Ironman, and it's got like the gritty kind of like gang related, hustling and drug dealing, like cocaine reference audio clips in this one. Right.
Yeah.
And then Supreme Clientele uses the clips from like the old Iron Man series, I
Yeah,
believe.
no, you're
Right.
right. Yeah,
So,
no.
I mean, maybe it would be too heavy handed to have the Iron Man's clips on Iron Man, but I don't know. It's always kind of not bugged me, but I just wonder what it would be like.
I think you're right. I think a big reason for that though is because when you put out Supreme Clientele, he was like, "This is the album I intended to make." Like,
Oh, yeah.
I
Okay.
don't know that for a fact, but I guess like thinking about it now that you've said that, I'm like maybe that's probably why he did it.
Right.
Because when he made this record, he was still in that mindset of like gritty, you know. I mean, he's
Yep.
always kind of had that, but you know what I mean.
Right. And maybe he had more creative control with Supreme Clientele. He
I
had
think so.
more producers. So it wasn't just RZA and True Master. Had a variety of producers, and I guess it still was on Razor Sharp. So I don't know. Anyways, it's a small critique, and it doesn't really affect my enjoyment of it. But um,
Definitely.
some other interesting things. It includes all members, I believe, except for Jizza, who we mentioned did have a hand at least in one of the videos, in producing or directing it. And ODB is, I don't think he has an appearance. Can you pick out, aside from it, like a little audio clip? Do you find any ODB on this?
No, just samples and
Yeah.
stuff like that. There was moments where when I was re-listening to it for this that I was like hearing stuff and I was like, "Oh wow, that sounds like ODB, but I know it's Ghostface."
Right.
You know? And I
Yeah.
think it almost in a way maybe he possibly like this is just me going hardcore nerd and going too far into it, but I think maybe he may have done those things as like a tribute
Okay.
because it was like definitely like stylistically the way ODB would say something or do, you know what I mean?
Right. Right.
Yeah. So, because I mean, I know that ODB was not around for the making of this album, so
Okay.
he just wanted to incorporate his energy
Yeah.
somehow into it.
Yeah, and if there was anyone who you would think would be the logical person to do that, I think it would be Ghost, who does occasionally kind of the off the wall stuff.
Definitely, he is more. I would say Ghost and ODB definitely have more. What was I was? I'm trying to find the right way to say this, but like they play with their voices a lot more than anybody else does.
Right. Yeah, like intonation or something, or yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Yep.
Yeah. I agree. That's a good observation. So we do get, as we mentioned, Cappadonna as a guest, and along with the other Wu guys, and Papa Wu and Street Life, who
Yeah.
had appeared in Tikal at least one track. I can't remember how much is he in Tikal. Do you know?
I haven't listened to that album in so long.
Right.
It's been a
Um,
long, long time since I've listened to that record. I can't think, but I know he is on there probably more than he's on any of the other releases at that point.
yeah. Yeah. Um, the track that they're on, Street Life and Method Man, who he always is kind of their buddies, on the release, on the track listing, it says Box in Hand, but the song is actually called Wu Will Survive. And the reason it got mixed up was because there was another song called Box in Hand that got replaced by Wu Will Survive. And Box in Hand ended up being released on some compilations or rarities.
Oh,
Have you?
interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I don't know which one I like more, but it's definitely worth checking out. Box in Hand, if you haven't heard. I mean, the original Box in Hand. I don't know how to accurately title what we're talking about here, since by all the official counts, this is Box in Hand.
For sure.
Anyways, well, tell me about your personal relationship with this album.
This album for me, I definitely like All That I Got Is You. I've heard. I can think that like I can't remember the first time I ever heard it, but I can definitely say that I've like remember hearing the song even when I was probably pretty little.
Okay.
Um, it was a pretty big song. Otherwise, yeah, no, I mean, I've definitely heard tracks from this song, but the thing I always remember about this album is that I would go into like record stores and look through CDs, and for some reason, that album cover, like I always thought it was like it's such a weird album cover. It's not a great album cover, but it just
Uh-huh.
always stood out. It
Yeah.
always stood out. And I didn't really know who Cappadonna was at that time either. So I would always like Raekwon and Ghostface, but I'm like, who's this other guy?
Uh-huh.
And then later on, everyone would be like, Cappadonna's the best member of Wu-Tang Clan. People would always say stuff like that. So I think for me, this album was kind of a big introduction to Cappadonna for me,
Okay.
especially early on in my listening to like discovering everything beyond 36 chambers, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this record personally I really enjoy it a lot. I really love it a lot. I don't think it's like the most well sequenced record ever,
Okay.
but I kind of like after listening to it so many times, I kind of start to look at it like almost like vignettes, like little stories.
Yeah.
Like that's how it kind of flows together in a way. It's not like listening to Purple Tape or Liquid Swords where it like feels like one long story. It's like
Right.
a, a lot of little movies within one movie. Yeah. I don't know.
That's a really good observation. Though I hadn't thought of that, but the way you just framed it really brings out a lot and I think helps me appreciate it more. So I appreciate that. I This is a record, an album that I neglected way too long. I knew that it was considered one of the best. It just never happened to come my way. And
For
so it's
sure.
only recently that I like the last couple of years that I really started listening to it. And um, I mean, I had really been missing a lot. It's really, I think it's significant for a couple reasons. Like we talked about the single, that level of vulnerability shown by a rapper probably had been shown in different styles, maybe more so in kind of what we might call conscious hip hop, but for
Yeah.
certainly in Wu-Tang Clan, I can't think of a song that was kind of this revealing of a person's true character and what they've been through. And
Yeah.
uh, some of the beats on it, just to speak RZA's praises a little bit more. Some really wild, exotic, fascinating beats.
Yeah. It's a super clean record. Like,
Yeah, and I love how when you hit play, there's like a split second of kind of like background noise, just like ambiance from the clip, from the movie clip,
mhm.
the education of Sonny Carson, and then what you doing on our turf, punk? That's just like one of the best ways of starting an album. Like I would put it right up there with the Liquid Swords intro in terms of just
Definitely.
like, boom, here we go. I mean, it's different. Like, Liquid Swords really like slowly draws you in. And this one is just like in your face right from the beginning, which is kind of how I would describe Ghostface style.
Definitely. That's actually a really good point. I was thinking a lot about some of this stuff for the last couple days, and I was thinking like the first in that era of rap, the first person that comes to my mind as far as like vulnerability, besides you could say LL Cool J or something like that, but I don't even count that because that's like a love ballad.
Right.
But like the first person I can think of is Tupac.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brent.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Like he was the first person to really like make a vulnerable hit song.
Yeah.
But like Ghostface, like to me, is like Raekwon has like the mafioso and Ghostface kind of has that too, but Ghostface had something a little different where he's very sporadic, very emotional. I mean, we kind of know him for that, like
Yeah. Right.
and yeah, no, there's points on this record where you would hear like what would be he would kind of become later,
Yeah. Right.
because he's his style is very much, I think, um, eclectic and more diverse, I would
Yep.
say, in a lot of ways than most of the other people in Wu-Tang Clan.
Agree 100%.
Yeah,
Eclectic, unpredictable, kind of like, you know,
yeah,
when if you haven't heard a song yet, you don't know if he's going to be shouting or if he's going to be like, more gently, like in All I've Got Is You, very different from anything he'd done on 36 Chambers.
yeah. Like
Um,
all I can think about when I think about this record is he's definitely on some "Now You See Me, Now You Don't."
That's what they were talking about.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
Yeah,
holy crap.
okay. All right. Thank you for connecting that. That's perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about the beats, bars, and top tracks. Starting with the beats, I am going to say I don't think there is a dud on this album for me for beats. I think I really like all of them. I love most of them. There are some incredible exotic beats. Winter Wars, like
Yeah.
that, how it starts off with like the Andean or like Peruvian flute. I almost kind of wish it would have done more of that, like through in the rest of the beat. It kind of starts with that and then it shifts to the more consistent beat.
Yeah.
Um, but I could see, I don't know if there were songs like that before this. Maybe there were, but I could see like, some of the more wild stuff from like Missy Elliott or Busta Rhymes. Like Winter Wars definitely felt a little ahead of its time.
For
And
sure.
the other track that is no longer on this or on this release, the Soul Controller. Did you have a chance to listen to that one at all or track it down?
Yeah, no, I did
Okay.
check that out.
Yeah, so it is available on YouTube. It's wow, that the production on that it's just opulent Eastern or maybe Middle Eastern or Egyptian fusion. But it just kind of like builds and mutates and goes different directions and
For
um,
sure.
it, it's just a very impressive production. Um, I have a lot to talk about for beats, so I apologize. But I love the horn elements on a lot of the songs. Iron
Yeah.
Maiden, love Iron Maiden a lot. How it's got the horn melody, and then it also has, I think, like it feels like a surf melody almost, or like with the guitar, it almost sounds like James Bond theme type guitar a little later on in the song. But the horns in that are so good, and like all the songs with horns, 260, Poisonous Darts, Fish, all good. I love the second track, Wildflower. That's a little bit more laid back beat, and the uh, guest vocals. Yeah, it is guest vocals that started off when they're saying like no smoke in the lungs, no smoke in the lungs.
Yeah.
Uh, Apparently I don't have the album to reference in the credits, but I read that that's Jackpot Scotty Waddy along with Ghostface.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the elusive Jackpot Scotty Waddy, who everyone knows is a great rapper, but only really seems to appear on You God stuff and that long Logic song Wu-Tang Forever.
Yeah.
So little
Which I
Jackpot
finally
Scotty Waddy.
listened to.
What'd you think of it?
It was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's like phenomenal, but I was actually a little more impressed than I thought I would be. And I
Yeah.
was actually impressed with Logic. I was like,
Okay.
oh,
Okay.
he's not the best person on this track, obviously, but he
Right.
he did like take his time and write some bars for that. And I was like, all right.
Yeah.
Because there's moments with that guy where I'm like, okay, he's all right. And then there's moments where I'm like, I don't get it. So
Yep. Yep.
yeah. Anyways,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, Jamie Summers. Have you ever seen that name or heard that name?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, I don't know if I had. So she's a Wu affiliate. She was on the first two RZA albums. She's been on tracks with Cappadonna and Shaheem. She comes in early in that song Wildflower, and I love her contribution. It's like
Yeah.
it's almost feels a little like dance hall kind of flavored. I'm on shocking body, rocking her, shaking money, making sitting high, looking fly, drinking on the best wine. It just like it comes in and like does exactly what it needs to do, and then
Mm,
we get on with the rest of the song. And that's it's not my favorite song by far, but I love how it starts off that way. It really kind of sets the tone nicely.
for sure.
Faster Blade, that's kind of interesting because it's a Ray solo song, I guess you could say, on Ghostface
Yeah.
album, a little bit like Killah Priest had basic instructions on Liquid Swords. We've got Faster Blade, which last episode, Cuban Links, we were talking about that like glass bell sound that it was in the samples from The Killer on
Yeah.
some of those skits, and whatever it is kind of the one of the instruments, one of the primary instruments on Faster Blade, which I really like. Um, Assassination Day is one of those songs where it starts off with like kind of a warm, like we might say like a barbecue sounding like intro, like major key, kind of like fun and inviting, and then transitions into like minor key. And I almost want to describe this as like fighting game music. I don't know if if there's such a genre, but I could see like maybe I'm saying that because it reminds me of a track on Wu-Tang Shaolin Style, which I don't think it's even on, but I like that kind of shift on Assassination Day. Um, there are a couple songs where I do like the beat, but I don't love the singing, and I guess that's where we would talk about it as part of the beat rather than the bars. But like um, the track that we're calling Box in Hand, which is actually Wu Will Survive, it has a really nice like piano kind of like, I don't know if it's the detuned piano that RZA sometimes talk about, but it's got some cool piano parts. I don't love the like kind of over the top is too critical, but like R&B singing, like that Wu Will Survive and Daytona 500 both have a lot of that kind of 90s style R&B singing,
Yeah.
which again with Daytona 500 I like the instrumental. It's Bob James, jazz guy.
Yep.
It's simple but it's effective. That's it gets stuck in your head and allows the rappers to kind of take the stage. um, I also like the tracks with vocal samples. And I know we talked about, you really liked, was that Ice Water on Cuban Links that
Yeah.
had that vocal sample. And they're like Black Jesus on Ironman has kind of the opera sounding vocal samples, which is cool. Motherless Child, which is taken from an O.V. Wright song of the same name. After the Smoke is Clear samples Jimmy Ruffin, and Kame, if I'm saying that right, samples Teddy Pendergrass Say Goodbye for a vocal sample. I like all those quite a bit. Um,
Hmm.
so, last time I was, or one album, I was like, I think it was Liquid Swords. I was like, I can only talk about the things I don't like because there's so much that I do like about it. And that's basically how I feel about Iron Man. But there's so little that I don't like that I felt like I had to talk about all the all the beats that I do like, which is basically every single one, just like little parts of them that I don't like. So I will say this is right beneath Liquid Swords for me in terms of the beats. And as you mentioned, like the sequencing isn't quite as good. It doesn't have that kind of cinematic flow, or it doesn't have the thematics of Cuban links. But each beat on its own, I like a lot, and I'm gonna give it. I wrote down 9.6. I'm gonna give it a 9.7 because, not to sound like a total mark, but I love all of these beats. Well, I really like all these beats, and I love most of them. All right,
Yeah.
what do you got for beats?
Uh, it's kind of a similar feeling because like I was saying, like this album doesn't flow like an album quite as much as the other ones do, but I feel like, yeah, all the beats are really good. Every song on here is really solid. It's like a really good collection of songs, and it has some like clips and stuff to kind of hold it together.
Yeah.
Because so I guess, oh, I did learn that Iron Maiden is Al Green sample. Sorry,
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I couldn't figure that out, and I was like, oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, no, I love the way the beats are on this record. I found out that basically, while RZA was kind of in his like heavy beat making phase of that, like I don't even know how many years it must have been, where he's putting all these records together. He would
Had to
just
have
have
been
like,
at least five, right? If 92 is when the demo came out, and this came out in 97. Oh wait, it was
yeah,
in 96.
96.
And then Wu-Tang Forever came out in 98 or
Yep. So,
97.
might have been, I think it was made in 97. It might have come out in 97 actually.
Okay. But anyways, yeah,
Yeah.
so at least 5 years where he was basically running the show production wise.
Yeah, and just like locked in a room
Right.
making beats.
Yep.
But I guess he always had like a crate, some crates of records laying around, and he had like a soul crate that that Ghostface said he was just kind of always drawn to because that's the stuff he grew up on. And it makes so much, like, that's what is great about each one of these albums. They kind of fit each character, each person's character. But this one fits Ghost so well because it is so funky, it's so soulful, and that's just like his voice carries on all of the beats so well.
Yeah.
Um, the production itself is really clean, a lot of horn samples, a lot of uh, funk and soul samples. There's even some like current R&B, singing on it that are
Mm-hmm.
current at that time, which
Right.
I even enjoyed that, and I don't always enjoy that. So
Okay.
I
Right.
do love Mary J. Blige though. I've kind of always been a fan of hers. Like I'm
Yeah.
not like a super fan, but I've always enjoyed her as a singer, so I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
Um, I would have to say I'd give this. I actually wanted to originally say 9.5, but I would have to say like a 9.7 or a 9.8 because it is beat wise, it's very solid. Like
Yeah.
they're all really good beats. They're as you said earlier, it's just all bangers. Like it's
Yeah.
not a soft point on this album, even on the soft points on this album.
Right. Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. And you had mentioned, I think, in our Cuban Links episode, how RZA did such a good job of um, queuing up the style of the beats with the artist,
Yeah,
and kind of playing to his strengths. And I would say it's kind of the same case here. Like the beats all work well with the vocal delivery.
yeah, they definitely do. They fit the
Uh,
attitude very well,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
because
absolutely.
Ghostface has a lot of it, so
Right. Yeah, yeah. So it kind of covers a lot of ground.
yeah,
Even though it is eclectic, it's nothing is like too far or off the path of what you would expect for the album as a whole, right? Nothing sounds like super out of place.
definitely.
Yeah.
And I had a kind of interesting. This is a little bit off, but it kind of flows with it. I would say Ghostface to me was always kind of like everyone kind of has their own persona and like you can kind of hear their influences. And I hear a lot of East Coast in Ghostface, but I do hear some West Coast when I listen to Ghostface sometimes, you
Okay.
know, and
Okay.
I can kind of almost hear that a little bit in the production style as well, because I have always kind of to me, RZA and DJ Muggs kind of always had like a like I can hear the influence there, you
Oh,
know,
okay. Okay.
and I can kind of hear them bouncing off each other sometimes. But I like in this record, especially, I'm kind of like, dang, I think like RZA, you know, definitely saw that in Ghostface, and maybe even Ghostface brought it up. But like I hear some of the funkiness of like West Coast, but with an East Coast, attitude.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Never
It's got
thought
the
about
bounce.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like it. Okay. Let's get to bars. If you are listening to this and you've heard me talk about how I think RZA is the best on every posse cut, I'm just going to cut to the chase. Assassination Day. We've got Inspector Deck kicking things off. RZA with a killer verse. Inspector Deck starting off with, I move through the third world, my third eye is the guiding light. I love that first line to that
Mhm.
song. RZA comes in there with more tongue twisters, just like he's so good at. MCs upon their axis, their body hazard tactic, lactic acid, desert drop, cactus practice. It Assassination Day is very high up there for me for songs with bars, even though it doesn't have Ghostface, which honestly I'm not sure I realized until recently. I kind of like sometimes I just get kind of lost listening to these songs, and I'll kind of like listen to each verse and not think about the whole song,
Yeah.
as the sum. Um,
Very
but
easy to do with these guys.
right, yeah, yeah. So Inspect a Deck, RZA, Master Killah's on that, Raekwon's on that. I like all those verses in Assassination Day. Winter Wars and Daytona 500, those are just like how you described Only Built for Cuban Links, just they're barred out. Like those
Yeah.
songs, and Iron Maiden also, just bars and bars and bars. And I love I think it's Raekwon singing I don't know if it's a hook or it sounds kind of like a hook, saying something about like drug Somalians on Iron Maiden. And I always thought he was saying drunk Somalians. And it made me think of, did you ever go to or play at the Medusa in Minneapolis?
Oh, fuck yeah.
There was like often there was this Somalian guy who would show up just to like
Yep.
be drunk and like dance around, and that's what it always made me think of. um I I like you don't hear them that often in hip hop anymore. I mean, maybe you do occasionally, but references to baseball or baseball players in hip hop, like as baseball has become increasingly lacking black players, I feel like it's kind of more of a rarity these days. But Willie
Yeah, the last
Stargell,
one. Yeah.
what
Sorry.
was that?
Oh, the last one I can think of is, I think it was a Lil Wayne song where it's Barry
Barry
Bonds.
Bonds, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
2006. Was that when
Yeah.
that was on Homecoming or
Um,
Graduation? Sorry,
yeah, you're right. Holy crap. Yeah. No,
Graduation.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Barry Bonds. Here's another hit, Barry Bonds. Yeah. So yeah, Willie Stargell from the Pittsburgh Pirates gets a shout out, and after the smoke is clear, Motherless Child, right at the end, I swear he says Mickey Maris, which is like an odd kind of amalgamation of Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris. When
Yeah.
when you look it up in the like online, the whoever's taking a stab at writing down the lyrics, they said Mickey Mirrors, which I tried looking that up, and basically the only references to Mickey Mirrors are that song. So it makes me think maybe that's wrong. I mean, there's like a couple that are to like some weird like unsavory stuff, but there's like literally, if you type that in quotation marks, there are like 7 hits, and 4 of them are for this song, and the others are just like weird whatever is being tagged in the content. I didn't click on it, but anyways, so I don't know. It's kind of funny. Like Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris were the Eminem boys for the New York Yankees. So I think it would make more sense if it was Mickey Maris than Mickey Mirrors.
Yes.
But just a little like Easter egg that I like, and maybe I'm making it up and inventing it for myself, but I still like that. The last thing I'll mention in bars, which I don't even know if it's appropriate to call it bars, but it is the lyrics for All That I Got Is You. And I really relate to that song on a personal level, growing up in a single parent family and not always having the most money and being kind of ashamed of it. And the way that Ghost articulates that in such a heart touching and heart rending way is, I mean, it's next level. And it influenced, I think, probably Kanye's Hey Mama, maybe Jay-Z's Blueprint, Mama Loves Me. And I don't think it would be a big stretch to say maybe Kanye kind of bit that line about like peeing in the bed or sharing the bed with relatives, whatever it is, and family business. Um, anyways, I love that verse, that like extended verse, if that's what you want to call it, on All That I Got Is You. Um, so for beats, I'm gonna give it. I really I wrote down 9.6, which I mean feels a little high, but at the same time, there isn't that much that I don't like about it, and it is like a pretty barred out album.
Hmm.
It doesn't have quite as many like memorable one-liners, I don't think. I mean, I could be wrong. I mean, maybe more will like jump out at me the more I listen to it. But it's just really solid for bars. There's nothing jumps. I mean, nothing jumps out as bad. Like there's, quite a few like really good verses and lines. Just not as many that like I would pull out. So my 9.6 might be a little generous, but I already wrote it down, so I'm going to go with it.
Fair enough. Um, as far as bars go, yeah, no, this album is just filled with them. I mean, you have Ghostface, Raekwon, and Cappadonna pretty much taking up most of the album, and those three alone. I mean, if you think bars, you got to put them at on your top five, I would think.
Yep.
So, with that being said, I kind of agree with you. There's like not a lot of dull points as far as bars go on this album, and I do Assassination Days. I love that beat, and I love how RZA comes in second after Inspect a Deck, because I can't really think of too many other instances where that happens.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Um, yeah, I don't feel like RZA really comes in second a lot.
Yeah.
Um, but it fits so well on that track. Just like their voices fit so well one after the other, and Inspector Deck's always gonna kick the door down, and RZA kind of just followed up really strong.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. He might come second in Wu Gambino's after Method Man, but I could be wrong about that.
oh, you
I
might
don't
be
know.
right.
But yeah, I like the way that you frame that. Like they kind of get set up and then yeah, like hit home. Same with Wu
Yeah,
Gambino. So, well, did you have anything you wanted to say about Winter Wars, by the way?
yeah.
Unless I'm stepping on your toes and you're going to talk about it later.
No, no. I was actually one of the. I kind of forgot I was going to bring that up in this whole thing. Um, so yeah, no. As far as this record goes, I think bars. It's bars for days, and it shows the vulnerable side of Ghostface, which is a huge part of him as a rapper, and I think had a huge influence on hip hop in general, because you started hearing a lot more vulnerability in hip hop, I think, after he became more dominant in the culture and
Yeah.
in the mainstream of hip hop. But Winter Wars, so I follow this other podcast. I don't know if I can name it on here or not.
I think you can.
Okay. It's called The People's Party. It's Talib Kweli's podcast. And
Check
it's
it
my,
out.
yes, everybody. It's my favorite podcast for sure. But his goal is to have every Wu-Tang member on there, and so far he's had RZA, Method Man, Inspector Deck, and Cappadonna.
Okay.
And the Cappadonna episode is awesome. It's so good. But they get into Winter Wars because Talib Kweli says at one point in time he wrote down I think he said his 20 favorite verses in hip hop, and four of them are Wu-Tang verses.
Wow.
And one of them is Cappadonna's Winter War verse, which is long. It's like
Yeah.
most of the song, but
Yeah.
it's such a good verse. And it's like, I know it's not the introduction to Cappadonna because we had heard him before this, but I feel like after you hear that song and you hear that verse, like, you know who Cappadonna is. Like, you're just
Mm.
like, because he just says so much and it never stops. It's just like, whoa, it makes your head
All right.
spin, you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. I
Yeah.
do. That's a great, and I should have actually, he does have some memorable lines in that song. I think, what does he say? Well, I mean, the dial 917-160-49311, that is like, it's just numbers, but
Yeah.
it sticks out in your head.
Yeah.
And yeah, there are a couple other lines in that see my face on the $20 bill, cash it in, get $10 back.
Yeah, I love, like, it's a combination of like that, like, fun, like, freestyle, like he's just saying like cool shit, but he's
Right.
also like got some really like standout lines within like all this cool stuff that he's just kind of thrown. Like, definitely just jumbled a lot of things together, but it's so cool. The delivery of it's so cool, and it's fun to like watch him do it and to hear him saying all of it. And if you haven't seen it, watch that Talib Kweli bit where he talks about it, because he actually does the verse with Cappadonna and he like fills in the like ad libs and stuff, and it's really cool.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, One thing that I meant to write down, and I don't know why, I just thought about it as I was like looking at the Cappadonna lyrics, is different insults that Ghost and Ray have used for whoever they're describing in some of the songs. With
Yeah.
like, lobster head is one of them, and another in Cuban Links, I think, was like flower pot head or something like that. And I meant to look that up and see if there was any context for that. I don't think there was like an annotation in genius.com or anything, but some good ones between those two. I think there's one other like head, well, chicken head, of course, you hear, but there was one other one that I'll have to see if I can find it. um I wanted to, oh, I wanted to give a shout out to the Troy blog, for that little bit about Jamie Summers and her contribution, speaking of genius.com, for that verse in Wildflower that she does. It links to a blog post from something called the Troy blog,
Okay.
which gives a good little mini history of Jamie Summers and her involvement with Wu-Tang. So quick shout out to them. Um,
I'll definitely check that out.
did you say, sorry, I think we didn't get to your score yet, or did you have more you wanted
Oh,
to talk about for bars?
one thing I'll give my score, but one thing I do want to say is one thing that I really think is cool about Ghostface Killah too, and I really respect about him, is that I'm a little sad that Jizz is not really on this record,
I agree.
but but he does give like a lot of love to uh his homies. Like Raekwon opens the record,
Right.
and I think that's really like bold and cool of him to do. And there's a lot of like really cool You God bits on this record. Not a lot, but the
Yeah.
points where You God's on this record are, he gives them the moment to shine, and like You God, gets his few minutes to do his thing, and I think that's pretty cool.
Yep. I agree.
Yeah.
So Black Jesus and Winter Wars, I believe, are the two tracks that you got is
Yeah,
on. Yeah.
yeah. And I don't know. He does. I mean, I think he does a great job on those songs, and I think that it's cool that Ghostface kind of gave him the spot to shine because he doesn't always get it on all of the Wu-Tang records. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
Speaking of Cappadonna and Winter Wars, I'm just appreciating more. Um, you had sent me that SWV song featuring You God,
yes,
and Cappadonna gives a little nod to that in Winter Wars, where he says,
yeah.
"Because you weak in the knees like SWV, trying to get a title like Wu Killah B."
I love that reference too because SWV I think was like without really knowing it when I was a kid was such a huge part of I think our childhood because everywhere you went back then you heard SWV.
Right, right,
Yeah,
and that line, just one of their big songs was "Weak," so "Weak in the
yep,
Knee," yeah. Uh, Anyways, good stuff, Cappadonna.
yeah, yeah. No, I'd say bar wise, this album is hard for me to rate because it is like super barred out, and it's just like it's you can tell they were having a lot of fun writing on this record and doing the collaborations and stuff like that. So I would have to say I would give this like a 9.8, I would say.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, as far as
It's
bars go.
yeah, it's almost like they were like loosened from the burden of having to be super thematic with, I mean, maybe that's not true, maybe but like, with Cuban Links having to kind of follow a story arc, whereas they could
Mhm.
just like go wild with the lyrics on this and really say whatever they wanted.
Definitely. It does feel that way.
Um, so let's get to top tracks. Do you want to go for yours?
Yeah, I can do that. I mean Daytona 500 I think is a obvious like classic track. It is a good it's a great track. It's kind of always talked about. And whenever, you search Ghostface Killah, this is one of the first songs that usually pops up. So I would
Yeah,
have to say that's just a favorite,
yeah.
from over the years, honestly.
And I think
Uh, oh,
inspiration for Pusha T's album Daytona, I think was a reference to this song.
I believe so,
Yeah.
which is very cool.
Yeah.
uh,
Any other contenders?
I would say Daytona 500 is one of them. The Faster Blade I like a lot. I just think it's Raekwon, but it's like kind of got that classic Wu-Tang feel out of like the whole album. I think it really has that feel.
Hmm.
Um, Assassination Days, I love that song. Obviously, All That I Got Is You is, just it's just a classic, great song.
Hmm.
Um, what else? Winter Wars. I like Fish a lot, actually.
Okay.
So I'm going to stick with those.
All right. What are you gonna pick for the top track?
That is so hard. I've been thinking about that so much lately, and I really am having a hard time with that with this record because there's so many good songs on it.
I hear you.
Uh, I would have to, oh man, as far as my top tracks on this record go, it's so hard. Um, I'm gonna have to say, I think Winter Wars. I just have to pick that one.
Yeah.
It's the easiest one to say that it's my favorite.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although it's like really, it's so hard to say that.
Right. But I mean, I agree. Like it's a cool beat. It's great bars. It's it for that reason. I completely
Yeah.
understand why it would be top track. For me, it comes down to I think All That I Got Is You versus Iron Maiden, and it's difficult because they're so different, right? Like All That I Got Is You. Um, I do really like Mary J. Blige's contributions to it. I wonder
Hmm.
if maybe I would like it if it wasn't like so long, or if it wasn't just like Ghostface at the beginning or like the first half, and then the second half all Mary J. Blige and singing, like for me that kind of makes me want to listen to it a little bit less maybe, or the fact is like I kind of have to be in a mood to listen to it. Like it's not one I'm going to go to in a lot of circumstances, like
No,
if
for
I'm
sure.
if I'm driving around or if I'm exercising or something like that. Even though it is maybe, I mean, you could make a really good case that it's the best song musically on the album, or lyrically, maybe it's the most impactful song. Um, but given what I just said, I think I'm going to pick Iron Maiden as my top track personally, because there are more times when I want to listen to it and I enjoy listening to it more, even though it doesn't affect me emotionally on the same way. The instrumentals on Iron Maiden are phenomenal. The bars hit hard. So I'm gonna pick Iron Maiden for mine,
I
but I
think that's
love
fair.
All That I Got Is You as well. So
Yeah.
let's go to overall score, and taking into account cohesiveness, guests, production, story, I'm gonna give this a 9.5. Um, I we've already kind of alluded to it, and you articulated it really well, how it doesn't have quite the sequencing that the other two really highly acclaimed Cuban Links and Liquid Swords have. And it's a little bit more, and I don't even want to say all over the place. I think what you said, eclectic, is just the kind of the right way of describing it. Like the audio clips from movies are a little bit more diverse. Like you do have some kung fu clips, like from Mystery of Chess Boxing, but there was also like some crime movie clips or mystery or like neo noir, like Usual Suspects. You've got, of course, the heavy education of Sonny Carson, blaxploitation kind of clips. So yeah, there's not like an overarching story, but I like the way you framed it, where each song is kind of tied with its audio clips, and there really aren't any skits that I mean, at least that I could identify. I mean, maybe there are some really short ones, but can you identify any skits on this?
No, and that's one thing, like I hadn't listened to this record in quite a while before. I mean, I guess I had a couple of years ago, but like I always go to Supreme Clientele. Anyways, yeah, no, when I was listening to this, I was just kind of like, oh wow, there isn't any skits on this record really. And it's
Right.
weird because it's Ghostface and Raekwon and they kind of like own that, you know?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So it kind of threw me off a little bit, but
Yeah.
yeah, no, I couldn't think of any.
Yeah. But just as, like I said, the quality and hopefully I've described a little bit what I mean by quality in terms of the production value and the consistency of each song, is just very high. So if I didn't say it already, I'm giving it a 9.5. Very, very solid, top notch, top tier Wu-Tang album for me. Um, so how about you? What's your overall score?
Uh, man. So I want to say nine, but after kind of listening to you talk about it, I'm like, I mean, yeah, no, it's just it is a very eclectic record. I like, although it doesn't flow as well, I like kind of the way it flows because it shows all the different styles of Ghostface Killah, and it kind of gives them a chance to just have fun. It's fun in a lot of ways. It's
Yeah.
serious in a lot of ways. All That I Got Is You is a great song. Uh, Kind of have a similar feeling to it like you do, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, I mean, I guess overall, I would have to say, like, production wise, this record sounds really, really good. I feel like it was another notch in the belt of like RZA's production sounding clearer and crisper and cleaner. Um, and I do like the clips, although
Hmm.
it doesn't have the overall running theme. The clips do help kind of carry each song into the next in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Um,
Right. Just to, as you were talking about, I was thinking about all the clips are embedded within a song. So there's not a track that's just a clip or a skit, right? So in that way, there's like really no throwaway tracks. Or, I mean, I know some people like skits and clips and aren't and wouldn't mind having them as a separate track, but they're all part of like the track in itself. Does that make sense?
yeah, no, definitely. Cause there's like, although like it doesn't flow, it almost like if you were to put like a skit, like a classic, like Raekwon, Ghostface skit in there, I feel like it would have taken away from the momentum that this album has because it does kind of like much like the title of Daytona 500, it is very much like it just keeps moving, you know,
Right.
it just keeps going. So like that's what kind of holds it all together,
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
you know,
Absolutely.
because it could very well fall apart if it didn't have that pace, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good point.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
feel like that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I there were times when I was like, oh, does this drag at all? Like in the middle? I mean, that can certainly happen when you have 17 tracks, but as you spend some time with each one, the quality seems to stay very high throughout those 17 tracks and the
For
energy
sure.
as well. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
all right. So did you say nine or somewhere around nine or a little
Uh,
higher?
I was originally gonna give it a 9, but I do think I'll give it a 9.4.
Okay. All right.
I'll
Sounds
just
good.
play it safe. But yeah, no, it's solid. It's a solid piece of work, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say, I have really fallen for it. And I'm sure we're going to sound like stans because we're like doing the most iconic records up front with Liquid Swords and Cuban Links in this now and like ranking everything so high. But I'm going to put this in like the overall ranking just below Liquid Swords. I'm going to put it above Cuban Links for me.
Okay.
Just even though it doesn't have that overarching theme, I don't think I do appreciate it, but in terms of like replay value, I don't need all the skits on Cuban Links, for instance. And I like the pace that you mentioned on this one, the energy. So I'm just putting it right below Liquid Swords. What about you? Where does it fall?
Uh Man. Um I think that I
You
would in
said
a lot of ways.
Supreme Clientele would be higher for you.
Yeah, as far
Okay.
as Ghostface work goes, because I like Ghostface to me is definitely one of the most fluid as far as records, like actual records go. I feel like he's the most fluid out of a lot of like he tends to put out the best solo records in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. He
But
certainly had the most success as a solo artist, I think. I don't know. I don't know if
yeah,
you can generalize it that way, but with having at least two iconic albums, which I think is kind of a consensus with Clientele and Ironman, I don't think anyone else
definitely.
has accomplished that in Wu-Tang.
No, I don't think they have. I think you actually might be right about that. Never thought about that. But yeah, yeah, no, he's just he what was I saying?
Just where it falls in the rankings for you in
Oh,
the
and the rankings.
overall Wu-Tang
Uh,
pantheon.
yeah, I mean, I really like Cuban Links. Um, that record is really enticing. But I would have to say, for me personally, I think it's Liquid Swords, Cuban Links, and Iron Man are kind of like almost a continuation of each other in a lot of ways, even
Oh
though they're
yeah,
really not. But
yeah,
they kind of sit on the same pedestal as far as I'm concerned, I guess.
yeah.
Because for some reason in my head, I've kind of always put them together anyways. So
Hmm. Yeah, man. I think there's a good case to be made for that, just chronologically and in some ways like thematically, establishing the Wu Gambinos and introducing the crime element, moving further, a little bit further away from just kung fu samples, and so broadening out, but gradually,
Definitely.
with those three albums. So um, cool. Well, let's wrap this up. This has been an enjoyable discussion. Keep up the listening and we'll keep up the doing, and we'll catch you next time.